Answer to this would be, I think we are really not doing the cause of climate change a favor if we continue with this dramatization. As I said, Bangkok on the brink of death, or New York is going to die or go underwater, etc. It is scientifically proven that we have a diminished ozone layer, that temperatures are going up, and that many countries in the world have already to change production patterns and sources of income because they are directly affected by climate change. So the simple question which we have today, do we have the technological means to find it? We have the technological means. And I think we all have to discuss in a very reasonable manner what can be done as a common denominator in order to fight this situation. I would not allow myself to be dragged into the discussion climate change is a scam, because this is exactly something where people who have vested interest, as Stuart has said and Mr. von Pescatore, and this discussion is mainly coming when you look at it from the United States. And I will not allow myself to get dragged into it, because this is really going into the wrong direction.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Wait 1 second. I just have a gentleman there and a lady over here, so I'd just like to go to this side and to give a lady a chance. If you just can introduce yourself.
Yeah, Annie Alexandre. And my question will go to Mr. Scott. First of all, thank you for the information you shared. You made it very human. But what I feel is missing there is another component. I'm not feeling enough well the symbiotic nature that there is between the planet Earth and the human nature, we men. There is so many products today in the consumer product. I don't know how they're permitted to be used, but they're poison. The catastrophe of the planet is one thing, but we are literally dying on a slow pace, and nobody's talking about it. So I think to address that, the other thing that I like to read more and more is not just the political side of it, but the importance of the grassroots movement. What we consumers can do by boycotting those products, by imposing, by not using them, and forcing the corporate world to rethink our health. And I like to give a bit more emphasis on that, or maybe incorporate it in future presentation.
Thank you very much. In terms of, because I already got a yellow card from Valerie, I would like just to combine it. Roy, if you put it together and then we do it comprehensively. Roy, go ahead.
I think, the purpose, Roy here, so the purpose, I'm happy it has gone so far so well, but I would like to refocus. What can we do about all this? And that's my question. And I'm trying to move towards a closing address. I'm thinking about 3 hours from now. How do we close this? There is so much to debate, so much to talk. As we are running over time, I know that, and I have 17 speakers. But I want to ask one question. What are the four pillars of the problem are, first understanding climate change? As I told you, people still think it's a joke. You heard that. So fine, they're entitled to the rights. What's the technology, the mitigation and the technology and the finance? The 4 pillars, right? But as I heard today, am I beginning to understand that this all boils down, Ambassador especially, what would be the one single most stumbling block to put our finger on? The biggest stumbling block of them all. Would that be will, political will? What is it? I don't know. I'm asking you panelists. One single stumbling block, because we can take on them one at a time. So point our energy and direction and all our resources and fight to one single point that we need to break down first. As they say, nothing succeeds like success. If you break that one, which will turn the fight and move all of us towards the direction.
Ambassador said that we need a revolution. We need an environmental revolution. In order to have an environmental revolution, I think all people in the world need to join as one. We all have one thing in common, and that is waste. Well, all communities have one thing in common, and that is landfills. And most all landfills have one thing in common, is they don't need to be there to begin with, because we can turn that waste into energy. Another thing landfills have in common is that they put methane, which is 20 times worse than CO2, into the atmosphere. They don't collect that methane and use that methane to make energy to put into the power grid. That power grid that's losing 80% by being transported miles and miles and miles when it can be transported just a couple miles or kilometers within a community. It cleans the community if you instead of putting stuff into the landfill, you recycle those things out of that landfill. You take the organics and you put them into anaerobic biodigestion. Dr. Noble knows about this in Sweden.
Amount that was not discussed here today. The crisis is an environmental crisis. It's a spiritual crisis. Calling it a climate crisis is looking at it also through a narrow lens. But I've chosen in my own life, through understanding the breadth of what is wrong, to focus on climate because it's going to hit us the fastest, the largest threat in life on Earth. All of what you say is real and needs to be considered, and I've been trying to work on a way to bring grassroots together. This climate summit, the climate summit that I'm doing is that, and we'll be trying to evolve through a group think, through collective intelligence in collaboration with MIT, a way of bringing the strongest suggestions that come out of the population together and then putting them back out. And let's all do this, whether it's shareholder initiatives for corporations or boycotts of products. Okay, so thank you for asking that question, and please keep asking it.
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else to this point? Otherwise, we move to Roy. What's the most important, right? What should we do now? Number one, now. I think he looked at you.
It's simply impossible to simplify it that manner, but if you want an answer to me, I would say the biggest problem is that most politicians of the countries who have an influence in this effort are only elected for 4 years and are really unable to look ahead what might be happening in 40. It is political will and political vision in particular, because we all feel very comfortable. We are quite sure that within our lifetime, Bangkok will still be there. So we don't feel the urgency of the matter, and I think that's the biggest problem.
I think, Roy, instead of political will, it's sort of it's short-term versus long-term goals, if you will. Okay. Now, no, I wanted to state my first. I was just trying to reiterate or clarify. My first choice for the most important is that we have a political economic model of growth. I said this earlier. I think if we can retool where we don't teach our graduates from business and economic courses that you must be growing an economy for it to be healthy, that will be essential. But not just wait for those students to take office and take control of corporations. There needs to be a universal recognition that you cannot grow an economic system forever within a finite planet.
Thank you very much. Short answer, most important.
Yeah, it's the political will for sustainability. Yeah, today we have the lack of sustainability. This is causing these problems, and I think this is the main point.
We'll bring the politicians next and not plan together. I'm taking a vote 2 to 3.
I would like to say that I think it's very difficult to bring about one single decisive factor. I think it's like the weather. It's an extremely complex situation, uniting a number of factors that sometimes are going against each other. So
can we attack first?
Attack first would be, I agree with the ambassador, the political will of the governments. Because without that will and without that willingness to commit themselves for an uncomfortable future, because they want to be re-elected, they take an easy way out. So here, rather than that, if you can somehow convince them to take these very uncomfortable decisions of, for example, bringing down the economic growth of a society and so on, then I think that, but that's going to be very hard to do. But I think I agree with that's a stumbling block, of course.
I think before political will, you need to understand that climate change is a chance. When you understand that this is a chance for doing business differently, for earning money by saving energy, then you can do something. For earning money by creating new types of technologies like waste to energy, which is really an option, which is also an organizational matter, an option also for redefining governance, how you are organizing your country.
One single target.